Hi there, it's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer, coming to you to talk to you about the esoteric astrological events of May 2015. First thing is the full moon, which is happening on May 4th, is in esoteric principles what we call the Wesak moon, W-E-S-A-K. And this is a time where spiritual masters are supposed to be gathering almost like their convention, for guidance of humanity. And it's a really powerful time to be able to tap into the highest possible communication within yourself. And if you feel you have spiritual guidance that's available to you, it's like being able to tune into your spiritual guide even better than any other time of the year. So now with the idea that the sun is in Taurus and the moon is in Scorpio, which always happens, the Wesak moon is the full moon of Taurus, is the moon being in Scorpio is about transmuting desires. Taurus has a lot to do with desires, as you know, in the basic astrology it's like eating and drinking and whatever, spending money and just fooling around with people, just, indulging. And so in the higher principles, Taurus represents, the going beyond that to the inner desires of the soul and acquiring faculties of the soul, intuition and compassion and releasing and forgiveness and things like this. And then even more so in esoteric astrology, the moon is supposed to be what we're trying to work on releasing, like old energy. And so moon in Scorpio, again, Scorpio being that sense of the deep inner fight between, not to be, I was going to say not to be dualistic, but it is, between the soul and the personality. Scorpio esoterically represents that and surrendering to the soul. So having a full moon with the moon in Scorpio like that is just a wonderful time to be able to release lower parts of yourself. And that doesn't have to be super, mystical. It can even be things about passive aggression or ways you sabotage yourself. You want to be healthier and you do things that create non-healthy things. So it's a good time to be able to release things that stand in your way of your highest self. What's your highest physical health? Are you having money issues and spending out of your bracket or your budget? How are you creating problems in relationship where you both want to have harmony? Things like this can be, you can have illumination about those kind of topics during this full moon. So, what else is happening that's a little interesting about this full moon is Mercury is going to go retrograde this month, and that's going to be on, roughly the 19th. It's going to go retrograde at 13 degrees of Gemini. It retrogrades back to 4 degrees of Gemini, which it will be at on June 11, and then go forward, okay? So we say, okay, so you're retrograding back to 4 degrees of Gemini. When are you 4 degrees of Gemini before you go retrograde? Well, that's the 4th of May at the time of the full moon. So it's showing even more time to ponder those sort of topics, because that Mercury's communication retrograde is going within and really examining your thoughts. Because Mercury in Gemini tends to be like, quick, think. But the retrograde is like thinking deeper, thinking, and not to be frustrated that you're not getting a quick answer, but really sitting with the duality of things, which Gemini is, right? Why do I keep sabotaging myself? Why do I love this person because a fight? Why is there not harmony? So that'll be kind of a prolonged time of being able to work with those principles. And if we even say, okay, so Mercury goes direct on June 11, but when does it catch up with itself and start covering new territory? Well, that would be June 20th. So really between May 4th and June 20 is a time of deep reflection about these things. And so being patient with yourself, if you're not getting perfect answers, you get an answer and you can't stick with it, things like that. So continuing to meditate and be gentle with yourself, I think, is important with all the Mercury retrograde periods of time that we have. And being patient with other people. Other people are in their own opposites. Again, that sense of the subconscious fighting with the conscious, or we call your superconscious. How is your lower self fighting with that higher self? Like, oh, I don't want to change, or oh, I want to cause the problem. And it's like, why are you going to cause the problem? It's easier when there's not a problem, but kind of addicted to our own problems. And so this Mercury retrograde can reveal that inner battle of opposites. And of course, along with this Wesak moon. The other thing is, this is all about a lot of communication things we're going to talk about. So when Mercury goes retrograde, it causes some confusion in communication, right? Because it is in a way where our culture isn't used to dealing with internal communication or slower communication and more thoughtful things. We want to go fast, especially, again, Mercury in Gemini likes to go fast with the ideas. Well, as right before Mercury goes retrograde, again, in the pre-retrograde time, Mercury is going to square Neptune. Mercury communication, Neptune confusion. Again, Neptune subliminal things. The deep, it can be your God self, Neptune, like, oh, I'm not just me, I'm with the one. That's Neptune. But Neptune can also be self-deception. So again, it represents that feeling of the lower self and the higher self are at odds. So Mercury will square Neptune on the 9th of May, and then Mercury goes retrograde again, right, in the middle of the month there, the 19th, and then so Mercury will go backwards and square Neptune again on June 30th. So there's this period of time there about, really watching out for miscommunication. That's always a thing with Mercury retrograde. But to keep in mind that no matter how you feel up against people, it's like we really want to have harmony together. That, and again, this compassion that people are fighting with their lower selves too, and they're gonna, we said we're gonna do it this way, and now they're doing that. Well, you might be feeling in your higher self and they're not. And being patient, that it's almost like this teeter-totter. And saying if you're having these miscommunications, it's like the truth is we're loving each other. We're caught kind of in this swirl right now, and to let the topic go maybe until the person comes around in their sense of inner balance and be able to communicate, But watching out for accusing people is really hard. It's a tendency when that Mercury's retrograde and they're triggering you, you're triggering them. And, maybe to be able to say, I know we both love each other and we want this to work out smoothly, but this might not be the best time to talk about it, and acknowledging, giving that person space. That could be a thing throughout the whole month. And for those of you saying, well, when is Mercury going to square Neptune again when it's direct? Well, that would be on the 23rd of June. So there can be a lot of resolution that's going to be happening, but you have to be patient for it. Now, the other thing is, let's talk about Venus. Okay, so Venus is moving into Cancer this month. And Venus in Cancer, Venus being relationships, Cancer being your deepest needs. And because of that, it represents a lot of vulnerability. It's a Venus sign that has a lot of vulnerability. And it represents, a lot of times it puts people in a childlike mindset because they feel so vulnerable, wishing we had perfect childhoods where all of our needs were met perfectly instantly in childhood, and vulnerability makes us feel like, oh, it's safe to be vulnerable. Well, Venus in Cancer can bring up where people don't feel safe to be vulnerable and felt their needs weren't being met. So now you layer that over the Mercury retrograde, it's like, oh wow, everyone's sort of being triggered by these primal fears of not getting their needs met or feeling afraid to be vulnerable. But at the same time, it can be healing in this area, of course. It's what these planets are always trying to do for us. Now, so basically when Venus going into Cancer was just sort of a thing. And here's something interesting to talk about. So Venus will, on the 15th of May, trine Neptune. So that trine is actually an easy flow of energy and can make you feel totally blissed out and in love and connected to people, right? So the sort of high of being connected. Then Venus will move to, first it's going to oppose Pluto on the 21st and square Uranus on the 25th. So it's almost like you get led into this feeling of being safe with that person and feeling totally in love, feeling totally like all problems are released. You've maybe worked through some of that Mercury retrograde stuff, and then talk about the opposites. Then the feelings can come up like a second force going against you, where, I'm not safe, or they did something, they showed up late, or this kind of thing, where the Venus will oppose the Pluto and square the Uranus. So watching out for when the high is high, to know that, I don't want to say you're getting set up, but you're on that, like a Ferris wheel. You're high and then you're going to go low. And being able to observe the high. This is the most wonderful person in the world. And then I hate them. They're just terrible to me and they never fulfill my needs. Like, wait a minute, just a few days ago, it was the best relationship ever. Or that you feel worthy of taking care of yourself. Venus can be self-love, and I'm going to eat well, and I'm going to say affirmations and go to yoga class, and then whatever, you start punishing yourself when the Venus opposes the Pluto a few days later and squares Uranus. And it's like somebody on the outside would be like, wow, how can you think you're wonderful and then think you're terrible? Or this relationship is fabulous, or you need to get a divorce. It's like, what's that all about? And those two things coming together so quickly can help you see, wait a minute, what is going on here? I'm not seeing a full holistic picture. I'm just seeing snapshots of things and saying it's the best in the world, it was terrible. And so this whole month is trying to show you those sense of opposites and how you can be very exhausted from going up and down on each side of those things, and say, what is the middle? And seeing how vulnerable you are to this bouncing back and forth feeling. And with meditation and being able to develop a sense of being the observer of your emotions and these triggers, especially when they're real primal triggers with the Venus and Cancer, with the childhood and stuff, If you believe in past lives, there can even be the people you most love in your life, let's say they're not your parents, that in another life they were your parents, or they were supposed to take care of you, or they were your ruler, and they didn't give you enough food in the village or something like this, and they hoarded the food. And there can be a sense of even past life pieces where you start projecting a lot of resentment for the needs not being met. And of course you could say psychologically you're projecting your unfulfilled parent stuff this life onto them. But if you feel there's a past life piece, that could even come up. And to say, what is this person doing in this lifetime to actually is taking care of me, or is acknowledging my vulnerabilities and does serve me and I'm trying to serve them. And if it's about family, even this lifetime, they're probably not all bad. I mean, you might have had terrible childhood where it's horrible, but more than likely it's different pieces are being illuminated, and being able to forgive even the parents for not being perfect and having their own failures and frailties, and being in their own set of opposites. So that can be another deeper level of Venus and Cancer when it starts hitting these planets. So let's see here. One of the things that is because it sounds like, oh, what a terrible month or something. When Mercury does go retrograde, it's very close to making a connection with the planet Jupiter, a sextile, which is a 60-degree angle. And that really is a feeling that if you can get in touch with that Jupiter being, like we were talking about the Wesak moon at the full moon on the 4th, of having a spiritual guide, having an out-of-body teacher, an angel presence that's with you. And Mercury retrograde is like getting in touch with the benevolent spiritual guidance of Jupiter. And as you're going through all of this, if you can work with that meditation and say, what's going on here? Like, kind of like A Christmas Carol when, Scrooge was taken around by the different ghosts and like, see what's happening. Kind of like that if you're connecting and saying, okay, angel presence, what are you trying to show me about my inner world, or how I react to people, or how those people are reacting to me? Help me develop compassion for that person, and trying to remember that there's like a coach, who you can say, hey, what am I doing wrong here? Like if you're an ice skating person, why can't I do the triple axel? And you say, hey, coach, why aren't I making those turns? Well, you're not getting enough momentum and you're not going fast enough into the turn. Okay, great. Let me try it again. And not to hate yourself. I'll never do this triple axel. But like, oh, there's someone watching and guiding and can see where I might not quite be doing it. Or, and not to punish yourself, but just to be attuned to the things that seem mysterious to you. How come I can't make this work? how come this person reacts this way to me? And then that your out of body or your angel teacher could say, that person, like say it's your boss, they might give you an insight, like they had a terrible fight with their wife this morning. Forgive them and, approach them again with a problem. They were sharp with you about something and you just, not that you should deal with abuse, but, if the person didn't react the way you wanted to, well, your guidance could be, why don't you talk with them tomorrow and maybe bless them and tell that soul who is your boss, tell them in meditation that you're loved and you're safe, whatever. And then you go back a few hours later and the boss totally listens to your concern, gives you a solution, whatever. So your higher self, your angel presence, whatever, is there to give you insights into why the people are doing what they're doing and when's a better period of timing to go to them, and what blessing can you send to them, and what blessing can you send to yourself, So even though this month is like, whoa, because it's so Mercury retrograde with Neptune, it's not meant to make you suffer. It's meant for you to have insights into things that normally are kind of impenetrable. And you just need to ask instead of struggle through the fog, like what's happening. So that's May of 2015. And just a little, I wanted to say one other thing, that when we have the new moon in Taurus, that's going to be, I wrote it down. Hello, where are you? Come on, man, I didn't write it down. Okay. There it is. The 18th, we're going to have a new moon in Taurus. And it's going to be at 27 degrees Taurus. And this may sound disconnected, but follow me. That Saturn, we talked about Saturn into Sagittarius, it's going to go back into Scorpio in June, just for a few months, and because it's going backwards. And in the beginning of August, Saturn goes forward in Scorpio at 28 degrees. So we can say that in the beginning of August, Saturn is going to oppose that new moon, if that makes sense, that little point. And that can be a link. And that's another reason I wanted to emphasize about being patient with things, because Taurus is a lot about patience and those seeds, planting the seeds like you do in the spring. And there can be a real sense of unlocking that will come about in early August because of that Saturn, where people feel like they're withholding or they're sort of in a tense thing. They can't quite let go of the resentment, or they're, whatever it is. But there's planting those seeds now of forgiveness, understanding, compassion. Even if, let's say it's for you, you're sabotaging your health with eating poorly, and you keep being patient with yourself and forgiving yourself when you slip. It's like in August, beginning of August, that peace really comes out, and you're not snagging yourself on it. So it would be this persistent, consistent compassion with yourself or with another or with a pattern, and know that the pattern may not resolve in May, but the beginning of August will give a real wow, I worked on that and I really overcame it, So things may resolve sooner, but just so you know, if you're feeling like this will never, that it will. The new moon also can be a time of doing affirmations and making, setting intentions and things like that. And they might be larger scope because of Taurus's long-term goal thinking and perspective. And again, so if you're setting something toward the end or the middle of May, just give it that 3 months, right? 1, 2, 3 till the middle of August to let it manifest for you, and be okay with that, So, and that could be about money, sexuality, trust, all those things that Scorpio represents as it goes forward, and Saturn goes forward in Scorpio. And we'll talk about that one for August, right? Oops, sorry, half my ephemeris fell down. That's what happens when you do a lot of astrology readings. Your ephemeris tears in half. Okay, so that all being said, remember my website is alunamichaels.com. You can contact me through there if you want a personal reading, and new YouTube subscribers can get a discount off their first reading, so remember to email me and ask about that if you like. And have a happy May and enjoy the insights that this month will bring you. Bye for now.